Greetings, everybody, and welcome to Sirdcast number 10. This is super exciting. We've got Niklas Jensen from the Royal Lifeguard over in Denmark. This is fantastic, and this is a new offering for a lot of folks. I know for myself, and I could probably speak for Ali on this too. We've been talking about the missing link, right, Ali?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, so in Denmark, I mean, there's obviously tons of military tradition, obviously tons of military drumming tradition, and it's just really, it's an honor to have you, Nicholas, and so thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, Mark.
Awesome. So let's just get a start from your basic story. I mean, how did you get into drumming? How did you start off?
That's actually quite a random occasion because I had a friend who just asked me in school, in ground school, and I was like, I wasn't into football and stuff. And so he just gave me this poster. It's actually like an A4 paper with black and white of people with berets and somewhat looking military uniform. Like, but it's hard to see in a black and white paper. So I was like, yeah, hell, yeah, it looks cool. It looks military, kind of like. But what can an 9-year-old say about that? So I just got into it was like kind of a scout corps fife and drumming. And it has been that ever since most of the time, and it actually evolved into a full-blown marching band. Later on, this little scout band over the past 10 years I went to there, and I've been in that whole tradition in Denmark with scout music, and later on it has been with the local marching bands. And as things progress and I get older, I just started teaching, because obviously we are a small community, so everybody who has shown some skills, talents, shares the skills and talents with the younger recruits and new players. And I started like professionally interesting to music. So when I get to high school, I took the music line. Well, less sport and more music, and even took psychology, and it progressed as further to high school and college, to college actually, where I started to also study musicology.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some people actually tend to call it the music science. I don't know if that's the American term for it, or but
It definitely translates for sure.
yeah, I mean it's the same thing at least. But in the middle of all this interest and stuff, I also had to do my conscription. I had to consider what to do, so I actually tend to start at the Navy in honor of my granddad, who were in the Navy in the Second World War. So that was kind of like obvious for me to try and set that out, because I thought it looked cool. And I looked very up to my granddad at that time. So I was trying to do kind of the same things he did, like being on the deck and shooting the big guns up there. So I actually went there to Navy and actually played with the Royal Danish Navy Band for a little year. And I started to feel more interest in the military operations, which the Navy did also at the time. It was back in 2009-10. And I joined the actual Navy to get deployed and go on operations. And I was out there for also a year, actually. And then I started to think again, went back to think, okay, maybe I should join college and study some music as well again, because I was really tempted by the factor to maybe I could take this approach to study our culture and maybe our history, and with music in mind. But also during my time there, almost before the bachelor was about to end, the what you call the caption head or something, the percussion head here in the Royal Lifeguard actually wrote to me and asked if I was interested in joining the guards there. So once again, I came back into a fife and drum corps again. And that's actually where a lot of things started to happen. I got to know a little bit more about the strict traditions where the Danes have about drumming and traditions, and I actually got pretty excited about it. So, but also I still had that military gut feeling. I had to do more exploration. So finished off the music studies, and I went to Aalborg to become a medic in the army. So
yeah,
I became an army medic, a combat medic, training for various deployments, but never got to any for almost 3 years. So I gave up that dream because I was like, okay, it's not going to work out. They canceled the tour to Mali and canceled the tour to Iraq and so on. So, and I kind of also missed doing all the military exercises, drumming again. So I went back to the Royal Life Guard, changing my life course again. And now here I am, influencing a lot of the drummers, because I have always been a true fan of rudimental drumming over the past years, even though I've been taught in most marching bands a more classical style. There is actually not any rudimental styles like officially in Denmark. I think the most official rudimental style we have in Denmark would be pipe band drumming, which is actually also what got me up to a rudimental understanding of most of things. But I actually took some of it to the Royal Life Guard in my second time there. I like to be an influent part of the drum corps there. So we still play this classical style, and now we play a more rudimental style because I got more, you can say a bit more lead into it unofficially, because our boss said, hey, you should write the next drum show. Hey, you should write the next show and tattoo. And I had just been there for like a month or two in my second tour there. So he just kept going on giving me tasks, and I was like, sure, I do it, and he'll deliver it. And so here I am, and he still pushes me around to third, and I'm actually kind of happy where I am today. This is kind of a new adventure for me, so I'm really happy to sit here with you, Mark, and getting more dreams about the rudimental drumming.
Great,
stuff.
Niklas. Great,
awesome.
Awesome. Can we have now you talked about the traditional style of Danish, and I could see that it's completely different than the Swedes, who having a completely different style, or when we are talking about the Finnish, who haven't got fifer. They started now to build up fifers, but they do not have this tradition. And if I compare it to the Dutch, for example, it's also completely different. So what is typical Danish? I understood it's driven from the army, military, but what is the typical style?
The typical style of Danish drumming is officially, I think, especially Danish military drumming, would be and still are the classical style of drumming. I think we still experiment with rudiments today, but it all started with fife and drumming back when they started the regiment. The king started his first actual Danish regiment, because back when he just proclaimed himself to be the one king of the kingdom, they had like more mercenary style of regiments all over, because apparently they had a lot of money for some reason. I don't know. There might be some Vikings who had a lot of gold with them. But
definitely.
Who knows? Who knows where all those money came from? But
we don't go into that today, but definitely.
Something maybe with the British Isles. I'm not really totally sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. That's a totally different story. They don't mention mother of that much.
No, but Niklas, this is interesting. When was that? I mean, a little bit. What time century?
I mean, in the 16th century or 17th century, we see the Royal Life Guard come 1658 actually is the year, and we see they mainly wanted to make a regiment that used Danish orders and Danish commands, and have Danish soldiers on the line. there still was some trouble because there was still some German influence and still some other influences at the time. It was before the whole global English thing we have today, and back then it was more Germanic influence most of the time, and sometimes even French, because French were like a trendy thing in the European at the time. Even throughout the centuries, you see the Royal Lifeguard changing, following the French fashion. Actually, there's almost like a new uniform almost every 20 years or something. They only had like a uniform for 20 years, all the way up to 1848 from the date they start. So they changed the uniforms all the time because the French had a little move trend of fashion. And
do you still play a repertoire from that time, or is it translated into new, or was there some gaps and holes, or how do we have to understand that?
There are some gaps and holes, obviously, because the Danes, even at the time, and even the at today's music band we have today, they back then in 1617 and 18, they proclaimed themselves to be very proud of playing without sheet music and notes. And also in the beginning of this whole culture where the music instruments were developed and invented, they still had this kind of mercenary kind of contract with foreign players from other nations. So the Danish tradition were very influenced by the whole European continent throughout the whole time there, and they still had like this proud thing to say that they always learned the music by heart without music.
Similar like on that time was usual that you played it, you showed it, and you took it over. A lot of signals, a lot of signals for the movements.
Yeah. They have like also drumming with the forecast to everything in the Royal Danish Army all the way up to 1848, and that's actually a quite interesting year because it is up to the first Schleswig War. They kind of found out that the drumming wasn't sufficient in the signal to the troops because they saw how the small special sharpshooters were using horns. And they could communicate throughout the landscape a bit further than drumming actually could. So they actually, in tactical situation or the more strategic situation, they actually took out the drumming. And already at 1850, the drums were more like a parade figure. And that actually is a crucial time, I think, for the Danish history, because it actually gets a little stuff behind and like not taking that much serious anymore, because it didn't help them much in the first war, which they even won. But the infantry were, and there was the ground soldiers telling the officers, we need more horns instead of bugles, actually, to communicate more. And I think that's maybe where the classical style actually maybe it also takes approach to the drumming, because they only had small boys to be the fifers and drummers. So it was like more like a prep school for the actual music band as it developed through history.
That's interesting because even during the US 1840s, which is actually where the old guard got its name, was during the 1840s with the war with Mexico. It's interesting that you say that because the fifes and drums were a big part of it, but you could see it was starting to already be in decline. And they had this mix between the field music, which was the fifers and drummers, and the band. And the band was the more legitimate musicians, and the field music was the fifers and drummers that were kind of that old thing that, yes, we use them, but it's funny that it's almost the same path. And when people talk about these influences from other countries, it's very cool to like hear this coming from you and your experience with your nation's history, because so many nations actually have a similar track record when it comes to innovation and progress and things like that. And a lot of people I know coming from the United States or wherever they're from, they live in their version of history. And one of the greatest things about this podcast is bringing people from around the world to share your history and go, wait a minute, we are even more alike than we even thought, even 200 years ago or 150 years ago. Crazy.
Yeah.
So and let's move now onwards to today, because you said lifeguards or the king. So there's a strong boundary between the king and your role in the lifeguard, as what I understood. Correct?
Yeah, we are. Oh, it actually is the queen we have today.
Sorry.
just a minor detail.
No, I know. I belong to you.
Ollie, you're going to have your head chopped off. Be careful.
No, I'm Swiss. I never had a king or queen. We just we served for them, but we never had one. So sorry for that.
I mean, we have a monogram for each region there is in Denmark, and it changes all the way up to the day they sit down for the tournament. The only day they do that is actually when they die. So when they pass away, the next era is coming up, and then the monograms changes. So we have like I don't have I can have it here, but we have it on the carpet here. I don't know if you can see it here behind me.
Yeah. So similar, yeah. This was always interesting for me, that Scandinavia is so modern and emancipated. But when I work in Scandinavia, I was always surprised about the 3 different nations or 4 with different kings, different currencies, very modern in democratic parliament. I mean, something what the audience also not aware of, but you still keep a very positive and a clear support on your kings and queens. And this was always for me surprisingly, because normally you always compare like the drumming, innovation is different and so. And I think you play that very smartly, that you are modern, equal, the very, also innovative, but you keep or safeguard the tradition and be very authentic. And that's what for me interesting is, and like I said, Danish is completely different than the other countries around you, but they all call it one Scandinavia, but to be honest, they are completely in a different way. So I like that very much.
I think we're quite lucky that the one king actually chose to have a democracy in the mid 1800s, like any other, and he saw even that something happening in France, something happening here. Maybe I should do something else in our country, so we can still keep some food here. And today the monarchy is more a formality in the sense of having even anything to do with politics at all. But they do keep the tradition upheld, that the queen approves whatever law they take up, or when there was a new prime minister coming up, they set up all the ministers in a big.
So a lot of representation, but keep also the unity for the country, I think. Huh?
Yeah,
but I understand.
So, but we keep it today as a very reminder of our own culture and history, and I think it kind of does some national pride for all the Danes at the moment, that we have this old royal guard here showing up, and we are being used for every New Year's Eve. When the Queen does a speech, we go out on national TV for millions of people in Denmark and just make the presentation there. We don't play actually that much. There's a huge amount of TV rules about that.
but can I, just to understand you, maybe before we go further, maybe Mark has some question. So you play normally drum and fife, and then you have also drum parts, correct?
We play drum and fife, and we have bugles actually. That's
bugles you have as well.
Yeah, bugles are actually the more official the tradition we do or did. We changed it, I think, about 10 years ago to trumpets. I think that actually has to do something with the people who played there were screaming for valves. As you know,
that same exact conversation, yes.
I think, Mark, this is something you can talk a lot with Niklas now, because your old guard has a similar, very, very, I would say, for me, one of the most, and I like also what you do, Niklas, it's a wide range. It's not only drumming, fifing, or drumming and percussion, or drumming with the band. It is really has a wide mix of styles.
I think the whole thing we have been asking ourselves is, are we a part of the development in history, or are we still in history? Like, do we keep the tradition in the sense of, should we do what we always had been doing, like developing new gear, new uniforms, following time, which they always had been doing all the way up to where we get our latest uniform as we have now, but they changed the drums all over history. Okay, new rope drums, and the king even said, "Oh, we don't want the wood drums. We want the drums and brass." So pretty heavy drums, by the way. And today we use Lux. Lock tuned drums. So we went away from rope drums only. And that was in 2012. We changed that, I think, from rope drums to drums with screws and locks to tune the drums. And also we also went from brass drums, I think maybe 15 years ago, to wood drums. Or maybe it actually is even more. I think that's 20 years ago. So they always kind of like changed the drums material and always had changed what kind of sticks we use and stuff, because we just follow time. We don't. I mean, it's not to sound like we are modernizing everything, but it's the question and this discussion that's always coming up. Should we just keep doing what we've always been doing? But that means we have to develop all the time, because the Royal Lifeguard has a history of being that elite unit, always following time with trend and uniforms, even from 1658 of its establishment all the way up to 1850s. They changed the uniforms every 20 years. And that says a lot of things of how should we actually think about these traditions.
Well, and I think, so that's one of the things we've had to come up with in the old guard, is to try to find the rhythms of change. And, you know, you can find it in presidential cycles, you can find it in commanding officer cycles, you can find it in local squad leader cycles. And it's always through that chain of command, there's always somebody who brings their experience and their opinion, which is great because it creates a different flavor. And I think that's always a very positive question to ask, is how are you relating an old tradition to a modern audience or to the people of today? And so I think these questions are amazing when you talk about the Royal Marines over in the UK with their corps of drums, and they start having, you know, the 1600s uniform with that kind of style. Then they have their, you know, later on uniforms, and they have the modern uniform of today. That's something we're having discussions with here of, how amazing could it be if that elite unit could kind of give an audience a snapshot in each of those traditions and then bring it to what it is today? And I mean, that's right there. You are literally not just living history and kind of a cute kind of word, oh, that's nice, but you're actually at the highest level of that tradition throughout its history. And I think that's a really unique and special place to be, to have any kind of part of that conversation, because you are living your nation's traditions in the story of the military. And I think that's why, I mean, I get so excited to have these conversations with you, to have these conversations with Ollie, is like, we are literally talking to history in this podcast. Like, you are,
we live it.
I
think that's what it always ends up, this discussion ending up completely somewhere different than we thought. And what I like, Niklas, that this is now something what I like very much on this group or this society. People, they are all bringing something on the table where they believe in, very authentic. And they breathe and live it, you know. It's not, you do not have to explain it, whatever. It's very authentic and it's straightforward. And it's funny, like you said it, you know, because everyone wants to be innovative, and sometimes you leave the path and going somewhere where you end up. And it's interesting what you're mentioning, because, for example, in Switzerland, where we have this very old tradition, we never had a Swiss drum till 1983. We used the British one, we used the French one, we used even the German one, this very small one, because, as you said, in this, as a small country, and I'm sorry, you are big, but also small in size, but very internationally combined, you are always in transition and in a blend of other cultures. And it was interesting how you explained it. You define yourself about what's happening somewhere else, but you want to don't stay still. And for me, this is a very interesting, like you say, from rope back to tension. I think it has to do also with repertoire. And like Mark said, what you want to show to the audience to be attractive. And I think these are the two lead ones. But just go back with the bugles and the fifers. Is that repertoire you're playing? Is that you arranging it, or how is it? Because you mentioned it that you think it new, you try to be innovative.
Yeah, we and that's actually quite funny because the music parts are still trying to be a more classical approach to
tunes.
How to the tunes. And we also see some kind of style we do at the moment where we play in a certain way. We make new marches, but in the sense of how we play in a Royal Lifeguard kind of style. Kind of hard to explain without playing it, but it is obviously our own kind of way to play it. If you heard the track with what was it? What did I call it? The Brave Soldier?
Yes, Brave Soldier. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the most Danish song I think we could even present to you. And
but you have quite a nice sound, a special style, what you really developed or created for your group, and I think that makes, next to the uniform or next to the thing, gives them their own style and look and feel, I think.
So that's also a discussion we had. Should we keep going on with the rudimental drumming style in all aspects of our work and job here at the Royal Lifeguard, or should we just keep it this way when we do parades and marches and having this? And that's actually a decision we did quite a few years ago. Like, let's just keep it this way, because that's what we always done and always gonna be doing. But when we do more show mannered drum shows and solos, we take it a notch up, maybe to experiment with rudimental drumming and stuff. And also when we do exercises, trying to push it a bit more, try to maybe expand our horizons from the classical drumming approaches, but even also doing bits in here and there.
I love it. So, I mean, in the percussion section right now, I mean, what's the typical instrumentation? How many drums? How many, like, is it all typically snares and basses? Do you guys ever change it up?
We are actually primarily just snares, actually. There is just, I think we can be up to 12 snares hired here. But we mix it up sometimes when we do a bit more tattoos and shows or concerts. We bring in bass drums, which is a very new addition. I think it was experimented even, I think, 4 years ago, and now we are having it more and more and more. We even had some pretty crazy self-made, but it was still some, I don't know what to call it, like techno kind of music, blended remix in here. I think you know this tune, Village Dance. We because we had Casper and Brian over at the US, and they brought back some of that music, and we kind of made a very dramatic version of it.
I love it. You have to give my best regards to Casper.
I will say hi to you. But yeah, that just to say that we kind of expanding a lot sometimes when it comes to the genres and stuff. But yeah, we tend to do it a bit more traditional when we do parades and stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's great. I mean, the question is always, how much, what's the limit, right? What's the limit of us going a little too far? And you have to step out of the box a little bit, I think, too much to find out that that's the wrong answer. Let's bring it back a little bit. And I think even, I mean, for having 12 snares and wearing the uniforms, the bearskin caps and everything, like it's so impressive. I mean, so is it every parade is that configuration, or does it kind of change where some parades it's less drummers? How does that work?
Yeah, the standard configuration we do are actually 6 snares and 6 fifers. That's the most standard parade we do. In these times of COVID, we were all way down to 2 snares and 2 fifers and no music band. So we did a very small parade. We do huge parades. It's compared to maybe some. We have it's a very small roads and stuff we parade on, but it's 36 musicians in the music bands and 12 drum and fifers in one parade, and 6 snares and 6 fifers are the standard, and then we sometimes expand it to 8 snares and 8 fifers as the large scale of the configurations. So that's the typical configurations we do.
And then in that, so I mean, how many? I mean, typically performances do you have like seasons? Is it like a summer season? Is the busy season, or does it kind of just depend on the year?
The busy season, the most busy season we have is actually what we have now is starting from December to and goes on to March, April, where we have parades every day. Which we call, I think it's Royal Parade, so we can call it the King's Parade, where we have 36 guards and 36 musicians and 12 to 16 drum and fifers doing parades. And we do that every day, change of guards. And usually out of this season, we do maybe just every Wednesday and Thursday. And that's also what we actually work every day. We just have, after this busy season, we are down to having just 2 guys on small detachments on different castles, which is just for a week or for a day we work there. But there's always 2 guys, 1 fifer and 1 drummer, changing the guards, and that's it usually. But it's every day we do that, so there's no not even one time off. Maybe when she's abroad we can be on a little break for a day or 2.
Yeah, no, I love it. So could you walk us through that? So I mean, every country has kind of their version of either like a state arrival or a changing of the guard. So I mean, what would a Royal Lifeguard changing of the guard look like?
So we have this massive parade where we do come into we have like a big statue in the middle of the castle. We have like one big like the red square. We have like a whole place where you just go around in a circle, and then you have like meet up on a big front march where all the soldiers are lining up in one line just as a battle, and then we make like a whole front company march down to I think it's maybe 12 or 16 steps we do, and then we are having the banner out, the flag banner for, and then in different occasions it's mostly when the Queen's banner with the Royal Guards logos and monograms and stuff on it, and we do a banner march every time. So it's like slow march in a 6/8 dotted version of it. So it's like and then it's always the sergeant, which is the banner carrier, and a lieutenant who are doing this march. Only these 2 guys do it. They move it up to the parade to have the guards changed with this banner, and then the old guards, those guards who have to be changed out, take their banner and wait to every guard has been changed, and then we have a break there actually during the whole release of duties for all the former guards who has to be changed out with the new guards, and we come out with the relief guard and marches back home with that, and we do a whole round again with the horse and the front march and the whole banner march as well. and now we are actually ready to march back home to the barracks throughout the city once more. So and we it's not a long parade, but in a total it's like 5 kilometers back and forth in a total length. I don't know what that is in miles.
About 3.1. Yeah.
I'm a metric person, so.
But just to understand, and then you playing home or what?
Yeah, we're doing a parade home after the initial change of guards. So we do a parade all the way down to the castle and change the guards, and then we also do a similar parade back. It's a little different route, but it's similar to the parade down there. We have people following us all the way.
That's what I'm saying. So it must be a spectacle for the audience and also for the tourists and everyone. Yeah. So, and what time is it? Is it in the afternoon or when is it?
Yeah, it's every day at 12. We do the change of guards. Midday. Yeah. And we actually try to time it. It's a whole sport in that. Try to time it exactly on this minute, because we have to walk. I think it's 3 or 4 minutes before it's like 11:27 or something. We walk from the barrack, and it takes about a half hour to get down there before the clock hits. And it's a little really revealing when if you hit it as soon as you get in the castle area, and it just we were too slow. So there's a little internal sport about that one. Yeah, but it is a lot of people that had to march down there and be in a perfect time and perfect.
And you mentioned it's definitely now high season during Christmas till March. So in summer, is it not happening, or is it then you're somewhere else? Or?
It's happening mostly in spring and fall. We still do parades to that, but when it comes to the summer seasons, you went to a different part of the country, and that's where the whole parades and stuff is actually happening where she lives. So the parades and the big things are happening just once a week when she's abroad in the southern part of the country. Or
so you follow always your queen.
We follow the queen, and actually in this month, somehow the Saudi Arabia has invited us to come down there and celebrate her 50 years of reign. And so I think maybe she's also visiting Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure, but I think we are at least we are invited down there to play with 1 fife and 1 drummer.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing that's happening, especially during COVID right now, is that trying to keep up diplomatic relations with, monarchs or heads of state is something that's been a challenge, obviously, because no one can really travel as freely as they wanted to. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are doing that, because that's something that is really important, especially for military music, because, without the big ceremonies, military music starts taking this back seat, and then that gets kind of scary of going, well, they're not really around, we don't really need them. And I think that's always this battle of keeping the military music and that tradition alive. Yeah, which goes back to the earlier conversation of the new and the old and how frequent. I mean, if you're asking those questions, you're doing the right thing.
I mean, yeah, we are still keep on going, even though the COVID is speeding through the country even as we speak. I think we are, due to our size, it's still a huge amount of infected we get, but different from past year, we are still going on full blown. There's no limits as it is now. We just still keep going on full sizes on parades. So that's a little unique situation that we had last year, because last year was fewer people who were infected, but now we are down to our 3rd vaccines, most of the people here. Yep. So I think we're going with mostly vaccinations and trying to keep going on as if nothing happens.
Well, I think there's also, I am definitely no expert in any of this, but I was reading an article about the Spanish flu and how the Spanish flu eventually kind of came back into normality, where it was saying, a successful virus needs a live host. So if the virus keeps killing people, it's not a successful virus. And so the fact that this one is spreading as much as it is, but less people are dying from it, it's still like, that's terrible. But I think it's getting to a point now where, hopefully in the next year or so, we find,
live with it.
we have
So you can
a new
manage
way.
it and live with it and take it as a part of it like something else. Definitely. Brings up to the next question. So what, Niklas, from the musical perspective, what is inspiring you? Where do you get your inputs on your ideas from?
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
No, that's why I'm here.
I mean, obviously, it's the YouTubing a lot. Because you just put it in short. I mean, I've been playing a lot of pipe band. It was hard to fill in the big story of myself, but we do a lot of pipe band drumming here, and even our most traditional drum solo we have, we call it 122 or 122, which is actually taken from Charles Wilcoxon's solo 122, which nobody knew until one of our drummers, Daniel, was going through his whole book. He was just making a solo per day for 150 days.
I remember.
And he was like telling me, "Hey, did you realize that 122 is the same as Charles Wilcoxon?" No, what? Wait. And the only difference is that we just flew around with our sticks and playing on each other's drums, but it's the same notes. There's no correlation of that. Oh, that's the camera here. I didn't even use it. but yeah, we are inspired by maybe. When it comes to drum solos, we're inspired a lot with American rudimental solos and stuff. We even took a part of Joe 90s in our latest solo. I think at maybe the beginning and some mid parts and end parts, but we did take the most of Joe 90s into our solo and made a little remix of it ourselves. But it's basically Joe 90, that's our own solo. We just called it boot camp just to make it seem like we did something with it.
I love it.
That's great. I think that's something we experienced as well as during COVID, but even before, Mark, that we with this global repertoire is we keep it. Let's say every style is it is, but it gets like a common a corporate language where we can exchange and create something who is really for everyone's fun, and also as we see at the moment, a lot of visuality who's very strong, a lot of rhythm style where we can learn from each other, and I think keep still what we are best at, but open for new. And I can see it works very well also with you. So it's good to see that this way of going forward will be the future, also to create something together,
Also because it's we still are developing our style here in Denmark as when it comes to a rudimental mind set. I tend to ask people, what are your preferences, or do you like more visuals, or do you like more fat notes with a lot of flams and tracks and a lot of things to fill in? And it actually surprises me when people actually make the answers. I think one of our newest guys who had like maybe 2 years of actual drumming experience saying, well, I want more of that, just like the Joe 90, more fat notes, and some of the older guys are like, I just wanna throw my sticks around, have some visuals here.
It's interesting, Niklas. That's what happened when I see when we work with a lot of kids. It's the same, Everyone wants to be the big one and wants to show off. Yeah. And as older you get, as more you go in this cryptic, more heavy stuff. Like a good wine has a lot of body. So it's quite interesting how you explain that if you get some new people. So how long do you serve normally in the lifeguards?
And I think we don't have a limit anymore. Before we had like a change of contract situations and stuff. We for 20 years ago, we had only conscriptions, mostly conscriptions, and that meant I think 12 months for most people. And then it changed to 6 months, and at that time it gets a little bit harder to actually get a group up playing when it's just conscriptions and people are there for a limited time. So they changed it up to, okay, let's try to employ privates. And at that time it was maybe somewhat between 18 and 15 years you could maximum serve until your 35th year. It was a K35, that's the contract name, and that just means, okay, you can be here until
your team is 35. Then it's
when you get 35, you have to get out of here. But that was a bit too expensive. It had a lot of advantages for those people with that contract. So it was a bit expensive for the army. So now they only have a unlimited contract to your retirement age, which is in Denmark constantly changing, but I think at the moment it is 63, 64. So they have jobs till forever, but they don't have that many advantages as the old contract had. The other contract had like, okay, you get paid scholarship and stuff, a lot of bonuses and stuff, but they don't do that
but
anymore.
That means you're not having so much changes, or how is it?
Actually not that many changes, and it actually gets a bit more onto how many are having a social life with each other. I think this group we have now has been together for I think a 4-year time, but there's also some of us who has been playing for 10 years or 12 years together, known each other for a long time.
So that means a completely different model than, for example, Tommy has in Finland, or David in Sweden, who is completely working with conscripts, with new people, building up something, get all these new guys in, out.
We do get new guys also, and we still have some conscriptions, but it's only down to 4 or 6 conscriptions out of 24 employees.
So you still have the conscript model?
We still have the conscript model, but in a very limited way. Just it's like more like a recruitment and a little backup group we use for some parades where we need some more.
So like part-timers, like in the business, we work with part-timers, so to fill the gaps.
Yeah, we need to fill the gaps sometimes because they are neutral when it comes to overtime work and stuff.
Mark knows that as well. Huh? We have this discussion everywhere that the professional soldiers do not have any more time to feed all the needs, and now they're looking for special ad hoc organizations who are easier like mercenaries to fill the gap. Huh? So I think that's also a trend. What I see also here in Switzerland, so that you ask actually not privateers, but let's say civilian organizations to cover military parades or so on, who are former veterans but not anymore in action service, because still there is so much need to a time, and also with the work conditions, it's quite a challenge. Huh?
Yeah. But
it's interesting how you manage these, so it's good to understand.
Well, but average time is maybe 6 or 4 years for people, but some are staying around for 20, 13 years, and a very few have been there for 25.
To understand, another question: you play everything by heart, or do you have notation when you play? I mean, the fifers, for example.
I mean, we learn it so we can play it by heart. Everything we do. I don't think we've ever done a concert with sheet music in front of us. So everything is done by heart, just as a classical fife and drummer doing the thing in the old days. So that's the whole difference between us and every other music units in Denmark, at least, because we still are that old school fife and drum unit from the band.
What are you prepping for now? What's your next performance that you have lined up?
I mean, we constantly change our goals. We were even trying to hope for to come to Holland in the, I think it's called Royal Taptoe. They have
Taptoe,
and I think we were also like hoping for Basel, but I think it's very continuous changing, but we always striving for trying to get to the next big tattoo and stuff. But it is definitely hard for us to get some time off to go abroad and perform, because we have all our duties here and stuff here there. But as we get more demands from outside, we are easier to. We have a bit. It's better for us to easier for us to approach to the royals, saying, okay, we need to go these places. Can we have maybe more funds or something to go there, because then we can expand the whole culture here. But we are challenged with our own traditions and duties here in Denmark before we can actually go out and play tattoos. But we are aiming for shows and stuff outside the nation.
That's great to hear. And so I mean, we're going to probably wrap up in a few minutes here, but one thing I definitely need to have from you is please describe your uniform from like head to toe or toe to head, however you want to do it. What could you give a description of your? It's a very unique and it's a beautiful and regal uniform. So I think I'd love to get that in the description for the show notes as a photo of the uniform.
Oh yeah, so we have if we take from the bottom, we have our guard shoes, which are actually polished with some shoe polish from with a little what do you call it? Oh, I don't know the English word for it. Why did I check that out? But we polish the shoes up so it gets like mirror glass on the front of the shoe, and we work that out as well. And that has been a thing for I don't know how many years. It's probably part of the tradition as soon as they got the uniforms back in the days. But we also have, if we go a bit more, the pants, which are all in a very big heavy cotton pants, light blue usually, with a white stripe on it, as a big broad white stripe, and it's held up by just some pants, what do you call it, the straps or something,
suspenders. Yeah,
suspenders. You call suspenders. I was like, what is it called? And then we actually have two sets of jackets. We have a blue for normal services, guard duties, and then we have the red one, which is for special services. And I think it's also because red is usually are in guard terms in most nations a color of calling it elite unit, and also because red was a very expensive color itself back in the day, right. which I read myself too. But I think that's the reason why we have a red one on it. It's because it's a very special and a very expensive kind of color and shirt of that. And then we have our drum and fifer colors, which is kind of like balls with like some minor strips down to it on a shoulder, which implies that you are a drum and fifer musician.
Nice.
And that's only us, and the Royal Navy has something similar to it, but it's not that much. They have also a fife and drum kind of mark to it, because they were at first a Royal Fifers, or Royal Fifers, but fife and drummers at first. So they have the same thing. And then we have obviously our bearskins cap here, which are one bear, like an entire bear per hat. So that's a lot of skin for one. So for all the greenies and veggies out there, I'm very sorry, but it's all cotton, and it's all heavy cotton and actual skin. So it's also a bit different from hat to hat, but it's made in the same Canadian bear, actually.
Interesting. Yeah, 'cause, I mean, the discussion I had even recently with Darren Hardy from the Coldstream Guards, and he's now at the Tower of London, was talking about the Canadian bear fur. And even he was saying that that's actually a good thing that they control the population of bear, because sometimes it gets so overwhelming that the bear destroys various things in Canada, and that the taking of the bear skin actually helps a different situation. And so he was bringing up this, the flip side of the killing of the bear and all of that. So it's really interesting that the bearskin cap. I mean, it's a very prominent feature of your uniform. I think it's beautiful.
It's I think the reason they took it in the 18th century, I think it was actually because they scared horses away because it still smells like a bear. So it's and we see it still when we have the hussars, the cavalry coming. So the horses actually get scared every time, even without us playing. We thought at first it was just us playing maybe a little too high notes or maybe playing too hard on the drum. But every time they come a bit too close to us, they actually kind of get scared and frightened because it still smells like a bear. So the theory is kind of right there. So,
incredible.
But that's kind of the materials and what we have on our uniforms. So we have our regimental logo inside the bearskin cap, but sometimes the hairs are so long so you can't see it at all. But it is in there somewhere. Some of the guards have maybe shorter hair, so so the hair can actually be different lengths and different shapes because of the bear that we use. And that's actually also we have our sword on the side, which is actually a war treasure we took from the Germans at the first war we had with them in 18th century. We just took it as a thing for us. And we still keep it.
It's like one of those battle honors, right? From the battle.
We don't usually remember every battle we have on our uniform, but we have that one on it.
Excellent. So I mean, we'll wrap up here with a couple last questions. So just real quick, I mean, are you a person that reads books? Do you like things that inspire you? We talked about YouTube, but how have you grown? How have you kept yourself kind of fresh during COVID?
Through COVID, are you asking?
Yeah, through COVID, or even just in general.
I've been writing a lot of music myself just to get blood flowing on the creative mind, seeing how are they doing that and how are they doing that, and then teaching myself a lot, trying to practice new things, and through COVID we have a little more been more active, so it wasn't that too much as a passive time for us. So we were allowed to actually play a bit more, maybe most were, but we have been myself just been reading books, and recently got actually some few years ago I got a big book called Grit Book by an American who made like a tons of exercises. So I had the time to actually go through that book, one of those books.
The Mark Perret book.
Yeah, Mark Perret book. So I just had the time to go through. I think I went to exercise 400 or something.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I was when that came out with that concept, I was blown away that they took all of that and it was like they captured almost just about everything.
So I had the time to actually go through all that in my free time.
Nice.
So Niklas, as you are now one of our latest new members, and we are happy to have you with us. So what are your expectations a little bit to us? I mean, you saw what we do. You are on YouTube everywhere. You had a good start, I would say, with us, especially with Tommy in Scandinavia, also in Helsinki. So what do you want to bring into, or how do you see it, the society?
I see the society as a good chance of having some exchange in drumming and maybe play together, having some good laughs and maybe even a beer or two. We like to play in Denmark.
We can manage.
Yeah. And obviously I'm a medic, so I can even get people back up if we drink too much.
I knew there was more to this conversation.
But obviously I I sincerely hope to meet a lot of people who are doing almost the same thing as we all do in every part of the world, and see how much we have in common, but also maybe try to play something together, just to have that feeling of society, of where we actually do some social stuff. If you know what I mean. I'm really having a hard time explaining myself here, but it's
it's good. You see, because I think Mark and we had a very good start. We had a lot of movements, and we have a lot of projects coming up. A mix between exchange, workshops, symposiums, ideas. There's a lot of ideas in the pipeline. I think we will also share them in the symposium. So will you join us in the symposium in Portsmouth if it happens?
Yeah, obviously I will join you, whether or not the web will approve it, but I will come there. And I think they were pretty happy about the results of the last meeting we had in Finland. So there might be a chance we get there, maybe even with more people on it. So I hope really to have the options to have maybe at least one fifer with me, or maybe even have a group of drummers also to maybe show some of what we experiment with, but also how we play in general.
Excellent. Because as maybe not everyone of the audience know, is we would like to embrace also the fifers into the society, and also the Portsmouth is the ideal place where the home of they have a lot of tradition on the islands of flutes, fifers, pipes, and there is also a lot of coming up from there, and these mixed groups like you are also representing is quite amazing, where we will develop together. And I think that would be an ideal place to meet, and would be great. And we are very happy and that you are also part of our group. So, and also bringing some new ideas. And I think it was really enlightening to have you on this cast to understand Niklas and also see what's happening in the beautiful Denmark. So that was really enlightening for me, and I think sure, Mark.
Yeah, and I love this. And I have to say this before we go. So my former boss, the former drum group leader for the old guard, Robert Simpson, we called him Bart, is married to a Dane, and spent this past year in Denmark for the holidays. And so I have to do a shout out to Bart. We got to connect you and Nicholas together. He speaks fluent Danish. He lived there. His story was he was in the old guard for, I think, somewhere close to 10 years, got out, married his Danish wife, moved to Denmark, lived in Denmark for about 6 years, I think, and then came back to the US and finished his career in the old guard and became the drum group leader, and now is back and forth. So I think we have to do some connecting.
Definitely.
He speaks fluent Danish. He would go to the Danish embassy in Washington for events and stuff. So I think that would be really, really cool. But so, final last question. If people want to find out more about you, or they want to follow you on social media, or they want to learn more about the Royal Lifeguard, how do they do that?
I would say it's probably just Facebook and Instagram, as we don't have maybe an exactly own website at the moment. That might be a mistake from our side, but yeah, we are currently just going out the media on Facebook mostly. So that's where we are very active, having pictures and videos out.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. Awesome. Well, Niklas, thank you so much for the time today. This has been inspiring, illuminating, and I mean, honestly, a breath of fresh air, getting to talk drums and, thinking about COVID and how people are handling that. So number one, thank you for your service. What you do for your country, representing your tradition and your nation, is huge. And then also taking, obviously, your traditional style of music with the classical music and finding a new path for all of us to follow. So congratulations on your career, your efforts, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Niklas.